So it turns out the Vikings are going to be going up against another rookie quarterback. How can we confuse them this time? Welcome to the Locked On Vikings podcast.
You are Locked On Vikings, your daily Minnesota Vikings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Locked On Vikings podcast, where we're always trying to learn something new. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And thank you so much for making Locked On Vikings your first listen of the day every day. Reminder, you can follow this show and hear new episodes ad-free daily on Amazon Music. This episode is brought to you by Mazda. Like players, they sweat every detail, because when you make every move count, pulling off the unexpected is only the beginning. Stay tuned later for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward. Mazda, move and be moved. Today on the show, we've got quite a bit to do. I want to talk a little bit about the matchup of a young quarterback and how the Vikings could possibly exploit that, as well as the Zoever under with some of your favorite betting line stuff. We'll see just how the general public feels about this game. It has changed a lot over the week because a lot of things have changed over the week. And of course, your bold predictions. By the way, I am coming to you from a hotel in the UK where I am for the last game in this game. So if things look a little different, sound a little different, that is why. If I ever cut out, blame hotel Wi-Fi. But we're doing our best. So let's do the Dillon Gabriel thing. So everybody salivates, right, about the Brian Flores versus a young quarterback thing. And I wanted to explain a little bit more about why that happens. Why is there's a lot of good defensive coordinators in the league. Why is Flores so lethal to specifically young quarterbacks? And it's because Flores' whole build is about confusing you. This is why he does so great against young quarterbacks, but not so great against older quarterbacks. This is why Aaron Rodgers was able to get the ball out immediately to open guys all day long, despite all that pressure coming and a lot of pretty good W's up front by the defensive front against the Steelers. This is why, it's always Matt Stafford and Jared Goff who are the guys getting the better of the Vikings. And it's not Caleb Williams or Bryce Young, and now it's going to have to be Dillon Gabriel. So there's a couple things about Dillon Gabriel. The one thing I want to mention, everybody's making fun of him. He's 5'11". It's a shorter quarterback. That can be important when it comes to finding throwing lanes. When you're a shorter quarterback, you do have to manipulate the pocket in a different way so that you can find a way to get through throwing lanes. Otherwise, you're going to have passes batted a lot if you just try to throw it over everybody, because your launch point is just that much lower. That could be a factor, although I think it's a pretty overrated one. With Dillon Gabriel, more so, it's about muddying the picture. Look, I think about this with any Oregon quarterback. They kick these guys out knowing what to do pre-snap, or knowing what to do in that first, fraction of a second pre-snap. They know exactly who they're reading, what the coverage is, and what you need to react to, right? Obfuscating that adds another step. So if you're Dillon Gabriel, you're in college, you're Oregon, and you're running a bubble RPO or something like that, you are going to read, say, a slot corner. And if he goes with the bubble, it's man coverage, and you do one thing, maybe you hand off against that. If he doesn't go with that, if he plays with the run, you throw the bubble and you have a numbers advantage, or whatever the read is on the play, right? But usually you're getting to the snap, and pre-snap you're surveying, you're looking, you're saying, okay, who's my read? It's that guy. That's the guy I'm going to read. You're looking at where the matchups all are, and you're kind of surveying the spacing. The Vikings love to change that spacing at the line by moving guys back, by saying, no, you go here, no, I'm going to go here, no, you go over there. I think a lot of times it looks like confusion, and I kind of think that sometimes it isn't confusion, that sometimes it's acting. And that they actually do know exactly what they're doing, but they're just making it really, really difficult to read and really difficult to discern what is on purpose and what isn't. If it looks like an accident, it's even harder to figure out, wait, why would they start here if he's going to go if it's just chaos, right? If it just looks like an accident, you can't really discern that information. Well, that adds a step post-snap that was supposed to be pre-snap. Once the snap happens, you can no longer disguise. You have to now play the coverage you intended to play, right? The cards are all on the table post-snap. For someone like Aaron Rodgers, who's 41 years old, well, he can suss that out immediately. Oh, that guy's dropping back, that guy's oh, okay, this is just cover 3 and it looked weird. Okay, now I know what I can throw. Because he's got 20 years of experience. Or 15, I guess. If you're a new player, what you used to do pre-snap, you have to do post-snap now. And you have to take away the, you have to like try to take away that advantage by either processing it really quickly. And Dillon Gabriel does get the ball out quickly, but how much of that is because he was able to do some portion of the work of choosing what you're going to do pre-snap, and because so many of the play calls were singular reads. It's Oregon, right? It's RPOs and it's quick stuff, right? It's quick game. It's throws out to the flat. It's difficult to execute in its own way, but it does, kind of the point of it is get the ball out of my hands quickly, right? So like that's what you're coached to do. If you have one more thing to think about, and that one more thing takes half a second, well, the difference between a 2.7 second time to throw and a 3.2 second time to throw, if you look at like average pressures and sacks, it skyrockets. 1/2 a second is the entire world of a play between 1/2 second and the next half second. So that's something that Gabriel's going to have to contend with, and I think we're going to see a lot. I think you're going to see a lot of stuff at the line of scrimmage. Guys are going to be moving back and forth, no matter who is playing. I should mention Dallas Turner added to the injury report with an illness. He missed practice on Thursday. We'll see what's going on Friday with that. He might be all right. He might be better by Sunday or whatever, but something to monitor. That would mean like Bo Richter and Gabe Murphy. Is Gabe Murphy even? No, he's hurt. It would be Bo Richter and like vibes and Jonathan Grenard and vibes at edge rusher. That would be a thing to watch for sure. Because the Vikings do have a pretty stark run defense problem. And if we're going to talk about, I'll get to it later in the Zoever under, but if we're going to talk about like ways for the Browns to move the ball on this team, it's with Quinshon Judkins and a pretty punishing run game that they have. I would say that I would have gone into this Euro trip a little bit more afraid of the Browns run game than the Steelers run game, and the Steelers run game gashed the Vikings up and down the field. So if the Browns are even better, yeah, I'm like pretty concerned, especially if you're getting less healthy, not more up front. But the way that to bring it back, the way the Browns can move the ball is either by running the ball. If they can figure that out, that can be an offense for them, and that's a big problem the Vikings have to figure out. But if let's say the Vikings do crack that nut, and they do manage to stymie the run game a little bit, and it looks a little more like what Chase Brown was doing with the Bengals in that blowout game. They just couldn't get it going at all, or what the Bears were doing, right? The Vikings kind of have every other on their run defense. Maybe this is a good game. Let's say it is. If it is a good game, how do you get Dillon Gabriel back to doing what he, like back to his comfort zone? And for me, one way to do that would be hurry up. Atlanta really, really utilized this well against the Vikings to move the ball. Because if you do hurry up, if you do quick snaps, if you get out of the huddle, quickly get to the line, snap, you don't get any pre-snap information anyways, but the Vikings aren't going to give that to you. So like you're not losing anything, and you lose their ability to disguise and do stuff. If they're going to do that, the Vikings have to start in the right position, and they don't get to disguise nearly as much. They're going to declare right away. Problem is, you can't take any time you're basically conceding any pre-snap information, so you still have to do that whole thing. But if you could use hurry up and you could keep like it literally in tempo, if the Vikings, I think this is a rule they have, if we're to like reverse engineer it, because they never do it. But if the Vikings are in hurry up on defense, the offense rushes to the line, they will abandon all disguises in the play call. There will not be disguises in the play call. You'll show nothing. You just call it straight up. So if the Browns can use a lot of tempo and no huddle and hurry up, and by the way, this is why 2-minute drills go wrong for Flores a lot, or why the end of games always goes wrong, because once you're in hurry up, because the clock's a factor, suddenly one of the biggest weapons of the Flores defense is completely neutered. The cost is that it's really hard to run hurry up offense, and offenses simplify as much as defenses do. You can't call plays you can't use any pre-snap motion in hurry up, right? Because you don't have the time to. You can't use, and if teams do use pre-snap motion, well, that gives a pre-snap window for the Vikings to start doing their disguises, and you don't get the advantage. You can't use time to sit at the line and survey and make a read or whatever, because now that gives the Vikings time to do their thing. So you have to call simple plays that can be run, simple snap counts. You get to the line, turbo set hut, defense can pin their ears back and tee off. There's a lot of offensive disadvantages, but one of the biggest ones is it's hard to do that. You need a rookie quarterback to walk in and operate things smoothly and quickly without a huddle to get his bearings. That's really hard. I mean, shoot, we look at how much the Vikings have struggled with that with J.J. McCarthy, and even a 10-year vet like Carson Wentz has struggled with that, right? Getting the snap counts right and stuff. Or the offense has, whoever's fault it is. So that is probably the best bet they have to get a passing game going, and it's still really hard to do with Dillon Gabriel. If they do that, it's a huge credit to the rookie for coming into the league and in his first game in an international setting, weird week of practice, pulling that off. It would be quite the thing. It's pretty unlikely, and the betting odds reflect that. We'll get into that next on the Zoever Under here on the Locked On Vikings podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Square. That neighborhood restaurant is one of those things that like ties a community together. It's that local joint that you always want to bring people to when they're visiting from out of town. It makes the neighborhood, whether it's your local barbecue joint or your local cuisine of your choice or the best wings in town for game day. When neighborhood businesses thrive, the whole neighborhood thrives. And that is where Square comes in. Your favorite neighborhood spots run on Square. I'm traveling right now, and finding that little neighborhood spot, the one that's not the getting all of the reviews on TripAdvisor, but the one that the locals tell you to go to, that is always what I am looking for. And that is why Square is such a great way to find those things, especially when you're somewhere you're not as familiar with. Square is a proud partner of more than 4 million neighborhood businesses around the world. You can go to square.com/go/LockedOnNFL to learn more. But before you do, go support your favorite neighborhood spot. You'll be happy you did. Square. See you in the neighborhood. Today's episode is also brought to you by Mazda. Mazda has been doing this moving the game forward segment with us all year, in which we highlight someone who didn't just play the game, but redefined it. The moments that do more than just put points or yards on the board, but move the whole thing forward. And for me, that moment goes to Isaiah Rodgers. Again, second week in a row, this is going to Isaiah Rodgers, blocking that kick as the Steelers were about to go up by 3 scores, blocking that kick and breathing an entirely new life into the game in a place where you never see that kind of production. This year, we've seen a ton of blocked kicks, and they've all had this crazy impact because they're so taken for granted, a kick is. And if you look at like EPA models or win probability models, they all basically assume that these kicks are going to at least get off the ground, if not for the most part go in once they're a chip shot. So blocking that, turning it into a turnover, maybe even a return for points, is an absolutely colossal thing. And it comes down to every little detail of your get off, how you get out of the sprinter's blocks, how you time the snap count, getting your hand up at the right place and being accurate with that. So that goes to Isaiah Rodgers. When you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. And just like there's more to every highlight, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. Moving on here with the Zoever Under on the Locked On Vikings podcast. This is the time. Sorry, no guitar riff this time. I don't have all of my things. We're on a travel thing, so you're going to have to wait to hear the guitar riff till next week. But this is when we go over the betting lines. I'm not a guy that you want to take gambling advice from. You go watch the Viking Squad show, you'll see why. But what I like to do with this is use it as a proxy for how the world feels about it. Get out of our Vikings echo chamber little bubble and see how the world actually feels about this game. And I think this is a pretty important week to do that because the vibes around the Vikings are really bad. I can tell by the way that you guys are interacting in the questions. I can tell by the chat during the squad show. People are down in the dumps. And you have to remember that there are 32 teams, and there are teams that feel a lot worse than you do right now, that have a better reason to feel worse than you do right now. The Vikings have been very medium. They've had a great day, they've had a bad day, they've had some medium days that they got the best of or not, where they finished the game or they didn't finish the game. They've been up and down, right? And that doesn't win a Super Bowl. You've got to figure out your consistency, but it's a long season, and maybe you can find your stride, right, late in the season or something. But right now, they've been really, really spotty, and they have problems they need to go address. But if you look at the Browns have had much more concerning days. They just got beat to a pulp by the Lions. They got beat to a pulp by the Ravens. They did manage to steal one against the Packers. They felt very, very good about that. We talked to Spencer about that on the crossover yesterday. But the world is a lot lower on the Browns than the Vikings. I actually am kind of surprised by this. So the full spread is Vikings -3.5. The total is 35.5, which tells you what everybody feels about the defense, right? The defenses and the offenses here, right? 35 is one of the lower scores I've ever seen. And it's funny, the over is actually getting a little bit more money because it's so low that it's like, okay, like one short field, one turnover at the 20, and suddenly like we can get enough like that. A 36-point total and a 3-point win is what? What is that? 14 to, or no, oh my God, mental math. It's like 20 to 17 basically, or 20 to 16. That's the implied odds here is like a 20 to 16 kind of game. And when the over-under doesn't allow both teams to even get to 20, like that's pretty rare. But I like to look a little bit deeper than this. If you look at the passing props, like this is the part where I like the idea that this is going to be a low scoring game. Okay, yeah, like everybody agrees on that. And the Vikings being favored, I kind of understand, even though I think these two teams are pretty evenly matched. They both have offenses with like super existential crises happening right now, and defenses you feel really good about and trust. They both are dealing with, quarterback situations that aren't necessarily how they envisioned it going into the year. And they both have like running backs that they kind of trust. Like it's one for one. There's a lot of similarities. The Vikings have a little bit more going on in the receiving core, but because of what's going on up front, the impact of that is lessened a lot. It's just hard to see Justin Jefferson going off for 250 yards in a game where you've got Joe Huber possibly playing at guard because of the injury report, right? Michael Juergens still a DNP on Thursday. It looks pretty unlikely that he's going to play. They're switching at center right now. The Vikings are they've got Brandel taking reps. They've got Joe Huber taking reps. They've got undrafted rookies taking reps at center to see who can play it. Like practice squad elevations. And you're probably going to see one of those guys that get elevated just by the law of numbers so you can do an extra point. So it's kind of hard to see the receiving props, or it's kind of hard to see the difference in receiving talent make a huge difference in this one. All I'm saying is these two teams feel a little evenly matched, but the Vikings are getting what is functionally a home field bump here, even though it's technically a home game for the Browns, because they've been here for a week, and there's going to be this big like travel disparity, and hopefully for the Vikings, the Browns come out a little jet lagged and struggle. So then maybe that explains why Carson Wentz, his passing total is at 207.5. Dillon Gabriel's is at 181.5. In terms of passing TDs, Dillon Gabriel, his over-under is actually set at half a touchdown. And that half a touchdown is -225. So you can take +164 that Dillon Gabriel won't get a passing touchdown, which is kind of funny. But by and large, the touchdown totals at quarterbacks at FanDuel for quarterbacks is set at 1.5, and it's just a matter of where the odds go. So having it set all the way at 0, and they actually moved it to half a passing touchdown, tells you that people were hammering that 1.5 point under when it first dropped. Carson Wentz, over 1.5, that number is normal, but it's at +162. So people are hammering the under for Carson Wentz as well, just not nearly as hard. That's a hard hammer to get FanDuel to move that line. And so similarly, receiving props, Justin Jefferson's is at 70.5. That's about as low as Jefferson ever gets. Addison's at 42.5. Hawkinson is at 29.5. Addison is the only one that's near like a totally, like a nearly reasonable total for him. Usually you get way higher numbers for Hawkinson and Jefferson, but Addison being in the 40s is closer to normal for him. And on the other side, it's Jerry Jeudy is looking to be the main guy at 47.5, and David Njoku and Harold Fannin, the two tight ends, are at 28.5 and 27.5 respectively. But here's what's interesting, right? The rushing game. The rushing prop for Quinshon Judkins is 75.5. That is the highest total receiving or rushing on the entire game, is Quinshon Judkins at 75.5. it's often a running back is the highest total, but not in Vikings games where it's often Justin Jefferson. So Justin Jefferson is currently projected by at least the betting lines to get less yards than Quinshon Judkins. Judkins is a bell cow. He's going to touch the ball a lot more, so don't take that too personally. But boy, doesn't that tell you where everybody feels about this game. This is going to be a ground and pound kind of game. For the Vikings to survive, they have to stop the run and force Dillon Gabriel to pull a rabbit out of his hat and beat him and beat them. Speaking of rabbits, I have my own rabbits. So of course I'm out of town and they're currently staying with somebody who watches rabbits, but they did pick the game and they picked, so the way that this happened was I recorded both picks right before I left. So I picked the Steelers game and I had to like wake them up, if you remember. And then I like switched the little pieces of paper towel I had written on and had them pick again, but they were like very awake and very ready. So they come running right away. Let me show you. If you are watching, you can see they immediately run toward the closest veg, which is not always what they do if you're if you're an everydayer and you know what they do. But Zoe, who is on a 3-game win streak and at 3-1, picked Cleveland. It was plus 4.5 when I did this was the line. It's 3.5 now, but we'll give them plus 4.5 because that's what it was when they did it. And ZD picked the Vikings at minus 4.5. ZD is at 2-2. But that's just some rabbits arbitrarily picking piles of, I believe that was arugula this time. That, or was it mint? It might have been mint. I forget. That is a lot less human, you might say. You probably should say. What is human is a bold prediction, and those will be next on Locked On Vikings.
I'm Cody Rourke from Locked On Broncos, and this episode is brought to you by Peloton. Peloton is shaping the future of fitness with the brand new Peloton Cross-Training Tread Plus, powered by Peloton IQ. This is Peloton's most advanced equipment yet, giving you real-time guidance and endless ways to move, whether you're running, lifting, or you're cross-training with your favorite instructors like Alex Toussaint. It's training reimagined to make your workout more personal. Peloton is built for breakthroughs with features that help you plan, stay motivated, and hit peak performance. You can let yourself run, lift, flex, and go while Peloton handles all the rest. Plus, Peloton IQ provides real-time strength coaching, tracking your progress and suggesting weights that challenge you so you can get stronger. Plus, the new movement tracking camera, it counts your reps and corrects your form in real time, making sure every rep is safer and smarter. So let yourself run, lift, flex, push, and go. Explore the new Peloton Cross-Training Tread Plus at onepeloton.com.
Moving on here with the Locked On Vikings podcast. It is a bold prediction time, and boy, howdy, you guys got close on a couple. I absolutely loved the bold predictions last week. You should go listen to it. There are so many that had like fun inspirations in Irish history. And it meant that I took a lot more, and amazing that we didn't actually get any. Because we had some really interesting ones. For example, Zach Davidson would be punter 1 and tight end 3 on the 2025 Vikings, which is a great name, said that Carson Wentz would have an 80-plus yard touchdown pass. Do you remember a possible touchdown pass that would have been 80 or more yards? Wentz almost hit one from downtown to Jordan Addison, but he gets hawked at the last second by that linebacker who apparently ran like a 4.3 or something. Which I was like, I was in the stands and I watched number 41 chase our Jordan Addison down, and I went, oh my God, what in the world is happening? But apparently that guy just is that fast. And saved a bold prediction. So he saved me $20 to a charity of this guy's choice. Another one that got close was Connor, who said that Jordan Addison would have a 55-plus yard reception, which happened. And that was his prediction. The thing was he was cited going 140 and a 55. So he would have a 55-plus yard reception. But I was like, you got to put both numbers in there somehow. So I said it would have to be 140 yards, which he just barely didn't clear because of that big, giant, long one. Buoyed the rest of his game. So we ended up not having any. The other ones were that a Vikings non-QB will outgain and outscore the Steelers offense. Obviously, that didn't work. Carson Wentz would be under 100 air yards. That didn't happen. That the Vikings would win by 5 or more scores? No. And that Aaron Rodgers would be sacked or tackled at least 7.5 times and will fumble at least once. I do not believe we saw that. I don't think we got really many sacks at all because he got the ball out so quickly. And Locked On Steelers Christopher Carter said that Darnell Washington would have 2 touchdowns. But let's move on to this week. I forgot on the crossover to ask Spencer for one. I did text him, but he hasn't gotten back to me yet. So if he does add one, I'll add this to it. I'll add it to this retroactively, and we'll just talk about it next week. But let's move to the ones that you all gave me. PFF's random number generator said that had a whole thing about Dillon Gabriel and how he will make his debut start in England. His distant relative, English rock legend Peter Gabriel, he says distant relative probably, so I don't think this is actually distant relatives. But Peter Gabriel won a record 9 MTV Music Video Awards for his hit song Sledgehammer in 1987. Therefore, the Sledgehammer of a Vikings defense will force Dillon Gabriel into at least 9 combined sacks, interceptions, and fumbles on Sunday. Yeah, please yell at me if Dillon Gabriel is actually related to Peter Gabriel. I shouldn't be so presumptuous. The 14-yard line that tackled Danny Dimes says that I believe we are all familiar with the TV show Peaky Blinders. There are a few Vikings-Browns defensive linemen with names similar to characters in Peaky Blinders. Jonathan Grenard, like John Shelby, Isaiah McGuire, like Isaiah Jesus, Mike Hall Jr., like Michael Gray, and Shelby Harris, Shelbys are everywhere. Each player will have at least half a sack. So once again, that's Jonathan Grenard, Isaiah McGuire, Mike Hall, and Shelby Harris. That's 3 Browns and Jonathan Grenard. Mal says that the London game would end in a draw. We kind of always have to have this. I think every time we played in London since I've been doing this show, that has been one of the bold predictions, is that it's like they're on a soccer pitch. We got to throw a draw in there. This feels like one that could be there, like those grindy, bad offense games where nobody can muster a score and then the clock just kind of expires on you. Doesn't seem like the kind of game that a draw would happen. Billiam Nye, love that, says, much has been made of the Vikings' woes on the offensive line and the disaster matchup against this monstrous Cleveland defense. The defensive front. Any rational human would see this matchup and expect nothing but the worst. However, we are all Vikings fans, and that means we are not rational people. Given this, my bold prediction is that all of our expectations will be subverted, and the Cleveland front 7 will fail to sack Carson Wentz in this game. You've worded that interestingly so that like a corner blitz off the edge could get a sack, but it still wouldn't count. That would be incredibly bold, but I do kind of hear you that like if there's one thing the Vikings consistently do, it's whatever you don't expect them to. So in a game where, you know, they're not supposed to be able to block at all, this would be the game where suddenly the O-line figures it out, or where they just like get rid of the ball so quickly that they avoid the sack, much like Aaron Rodgers did to the Vikings last week. The mind that possessed Shadur? You guys are gonna have to explain that one to me. I don't really get it. Says that Dillon Gabriel is the second all-time leader in passing yards in college behind only Case Keenum. The last time Keenum and Wentz faced off, they both went for 300-plus yards and 3 touchdowns. Dillon Gabriel and Wentz will recreate this performance in London. We have a few that are like this version, just some version of like, actually the offense won't suck on both sides of the ball, which is bold. So I guess it is represented in a number of ways. If this turns into like a high-scoring barn burner, a couple of you might hit, and then I'll be donating to a charity of your choice. I didn't mention, by the way, if you do a bold prediction and I read it and you're correct, I will donate $20 to a charity of your choice, and I will also gift you 3 months free to patreon.com/LukeBraunNFL. Whether you're a patron or not, then you just don't have to pay for the next 3 months. I do, by the way, we did have one hit in week 3, Sam Hughesby. I messaged you back. I will get you when I am back home. Don't worry, I haven't forgotten. We'll get on that. Ian B says Myles Garrett will have more interceptions than sacks. I could see a world where the Vikings find a way to keep Myles Garrett away from the quarterback because they give him so much attention. I think if they do that, they just get destroyed by everyone else. So I don't even know it's a good idea. I think at a certain point, someone just has to stand up to that guy, and you just need someone to survive. Or maybe if you realize that they like Myles Garrett on the weak side or whatever, you just put strong side help to Justin School on the right side all day and just let Christian Darrisaw hit Myles Garrett all day long. Like maybe that's your best plan. But I could see a world where they go, holy crap, we are so scared of 95. They put every chip, every running back, every extra blocker on him, every protection, and give up like 9 sacks to other guys. And then maybe, yeah, you get like one stupid batted ball interception to Myles Garrett and this hits. Ross has a funny one. It says both the NFL and college football have a matchup this week between teams in Minnesota and Ohio. The winning margin in the Ohio State-Minnesota game will be larger than the total points scored by the Vikings and Browns. I don't know what the line is for Ohio State, Minnesota. I'm sure Ohio State is favored by 4 million points because they're the number 1 ranked team in college football. I don't really watch college football during the season. I only really look at it when it's time to start researching for the draft. So you're all going to have a better idea than I am of how that game is supposed to go. But we have seen plenty of 30, 40-point wins, even in conference games in the Big Ten, with teams like Ohio State and some of the lesser teams in that conference. So it certainly is in the cards, but this would be pretty funny if the total points in the Vikings game was super, super low and then Ohio State just like destroyed Minnesota. But Minnesota could also destroy Ohio State. Hey, maybe the Ghosts pull one out, really kill them, and this hits the other way. That is in play. The next one comes from Ross, who says, in week 2, Dillon Gabriel became the 138th player to attempt a pass for the Cleveland Browns. In his first ever start, he is outproduced by Justin Jefferson alone. JJ finishes with 139 plus receiving yards, and Gabriel finishes with 138 or fewer passing yards. Those are both numbers that have happened, right? Like they're both in the total realm of possibility, but obviously that would be pretty crazy. I like this, a couple of people said some version of, Dillon Gabriel rushes for more yards than Jordan Mason, or so-and-so outproduces Dillon Gabriel through the air or whatever. But this one was my favorite because it had the 138 stat involved. That was 2 from Ross. The last one comes from English. And you know what? Good job, Ross. You got 2. One is so incredibly bold, and the other one is like still pretty gosh darn bold. The last one comes from an Englishman who says that the defense is fine for more points than the offenses. I figured I had to have one in there that was just like straight up, the offenses are super bad, the defenses are super good in a pure way. So have that in there. If any of those hit, I will donate $20 to a charity of your choice. For Ross, since I took 2, I will say I no double jeopardy here. Maybe I'll do it that way just so it's fair. But I will see you all next week. The last hotel podcast is going to be the one right after the Browns game. So I'll come back from the stadium and I'll do that. And then I'll be headed home and we'll be back on the normal setup and everything should sound and look normal again. So thank you so much for bearing with me during this time. I will see you all next week. Everybody have a great time. Set your alarms on Sunday. And hey, if you see me at Tottenham Stadium, say hi. Don't be weird, but say hi. Love to hear from you. I will see you all next week. And as always, Skol.